Lamar Jackson was my MVP, best player on the best team. If you go look at what the body of work of what the Ravens had done, I was impressed already. Then they go to San Francisco, and this was the comparison I made. Do you remember this past year when Ronald Acuna and the Braves came to town to play the Dodgers, right, at the end of the year?
Yep.
And it was between Ronald Acuna and Mookie Betts, right, for the National League MVP. Ronald Acuna came to town and tore up the place. Home runs left and right. I think they swept the Dodgers. It was ugly, but he did all the damage. And it was after that weekend we were like, he's the MVP of the National League. And, of course, he won the MVP. And I thought, okay, here's Brock Purdy. I always thought that Brock Purdy was going to have a hard time winning because of Christian McCaffrey and because oftentimes teammates split votes. That's why Kobe and Shaq didn't win a lot of MVPs. Like, it just doesn't happen when you have two great players because they're going to be people, the same people who cover the team. Half are going to say it's because of Christian running the ball, and the other half are going to say it's because of Brock Purdy throwing the ball. And then they split the vote, and somebody else wins. So I always thought he was going to have a hard time. Well, but that's what happens. But in this case, I said if Lamar and them go to San Francisco and win that game, and he plays well, he's going to grab the MVP. And so not only did he do that, and people could say, well, the defense was great. They had the 5 interceptions, all this other stuff, right? Or 4 interceptions. No, 5. Four against Brady. I mean, against Brock Purdy. But then this past week, in the game against Miami beat Dallas the week before.
Another top seed contender, yes.
Exactly, with a double-digit wins, and they blew them out. And Lamar, just in case you think he can't throw the football for touchdown, he had 5 touchdowns, a perfect quarterback rating. You couldn't play the quarterback position any better. Ephraim, even people say, oh, you don't have all the touchdowns, enough touchdowns, this and that. Do you know all those touchdowns that Edwards gets in the red zone? He could easily take those if he wanted them, right? Like, he could easily. Why put wear and tear on your body? He doesn't need to do all that. He takes what he needs and does what he has to do. But anyway, he's clearly the MVP, and he's the definition of MVP, the best player on the best team, and you saw that yesterday.
You know, the MVP doesn't necessarily have to be – it's not the MVP of the team. The MVP doesn't necessarily have to be the best player on the best team. It just has to be the best player in the league, in my opinion, right? So when you look at Lamar Jackson, and let's be honest, it's become a quarterback award unless someone in another position, receiver, running back, even a defensive end, breaks a record that people deemed unbreakable. In my opinion, that's the only way someone would get consideration outside of the quarterback, which is fine. This is where the league is going. Now, when you watch Lamar Jackson, and yes, these 2 back-to-back weeks have been all about the Ravens staking their claim as the best team in the league. And it is clear. And when they beat those teams,
they're beating them down. They're beating them down.
It's not close. It's not one-score games. It's not coming down to the wire.
Think about, and we'll get to Philadelphia, but think about Philadelphia. They were 10-1, but go back and look at those games that they won. They were all close, all nil, but they weren't blowing anybody out. Baltimore's blowing everybody out of the really good teams in the league. It's impressive.
What Lamar Jackson has been able to do this year is – I mean, number one, staying healthy, all right? Do you remember prior to the season started, we were having the conversations about the new look Ravens offense? Is Lamar Jackson going to be able to pass from the pocket? They're not going to run him as much. Question marks on how is he going to do in this new style offense. So everyone was waiting and anticipating what that looked like. Well, this is what it looks like. It looks like a more efficient Lamar Jackson. It looks like someone throwing for, 3,600 plus yards, 24 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. But not only that, being healthy going into December and January, which he hadn't been in the last couple 2 years.
Right, about 2 years.
So when you add a player like Lamar Jackson healthy to this team, the Baltimore Ravens, who hang their hat on defense. They've won a Super Bowl because of defense, a couple Super Bowls because of defense. Then, yes, you get the best player in the league on the best team, and that is Lamar Jackson. He is special. Brother, watching him play, I'm like, hey, man, I don't even know what you going to do?
I haven't seen anybody like that. You could just see the way he affects the game, and people were trying to make a case for other people, and that's fine. It's your opinion. But to try to discount Lamar and go, well, look at how many touchdowns he had the year he was unanimous, and now he's got half of that amount, and there's no way he could be MVP. No way. Have you watched the games? Ephraim, people was that no way. And I argued, Rob G., who was the former 49er player we had on, me with Chris? Dante Whitner. Am I right? Didn't we go at it? Dante Whitner, which is fine. He played for them. He was doing his Brock Purdy spiel. And what did I tell him? I told him we'll have him back on when Lamar wins the MVP. And I get it. And I heard there was one little soundbite from Jerry Rice who put the Joe Montana's name in with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's played fine. I don't have any issue.
Brock Purdy is
he's a really good player. But he ain't Lamar Jackson.
I'll say it like this. If Lamar Jackson were not healthy this year, then Brock Purdy would probably be the MVP of the league. And that's a great compliment for him.
Yeah. That performance, though, that 4 interceptions, that's the one. That's the one.
But what I like to do is I'll take a player's best game and their worst game and throw it out. Okay? Because then you get to see who that player is. You take their best game and their worst game, and you throw those away because, everybody's going to have a bad game. That was a terrible game on the big stage between – a Super Bowl contender.
But that game was so.
It was bad. It was bad.
He went to bed because this plays right for the 49ers. Mm-hmm. A lot of people probably have never seen Brock Purdy play live like in that moment. Everybody's home for Christmas. It's the biggest game.
Big game.
It's the biggest game of the year. You got the top 2 teams right in each conference. I mean, like that was the game you want to play well and not wet the bed.
I get it, but you got to remember, Brock Purdy is still in his second year.
No, I get it.
Not even his second full year of being a starting quarterback in this team. And all he's done is won. He's lost 4 times since he's been at the helm. So you got to give credit to where credit is due. But with that said, Lamar Jackson on a whole nother level, brother.
No doubt.
He's on a whole nother level. He's literally out there playing the game of football like he's out in the street or, out playing amongst kids. Some of the things he's doing. That Jacksonville, about 3 games ago, that Jacksonville game where defensive end had him, lost him, had him again, he drops a pass down to the 1-yard line. At this point, you just saw it on the defensive player's face where he was
like, what can I do? Right?
I mean, then you just got to just shrug your shoulders and be like, all right, man, we got to get back in the huddle. So when you bring that type of energy to the position, and I mean, it's literally a man amongst boys, then come on, you got to tip your hat to Lamar, man.
And here's Baltimore. This is how we were talking about how good they are against the good teams. Baltimore is 7-1 against teams that entered the game with the winning record this season. Baltimore has a plus 170 point margin in those games. You hear me? A plus 170, which is the biggest point differential against teams with the winning record in the Super Bowl era. And then their defense, I think 13 out of their last 14 or so games, they had an unbelievable thing where they only gave up 10 or less points in 13 out of 14 in the first half.
Bro, it's when you combine a dominant defense with a dominant offensive player, this is what you get. We get to witness this happening right now. And for me, I'm happy because you got to remember at this time last year, the conversation that was being had by Lamar Jackson, about Lamar Jackson, right? He wants his money. He's not hurt. He's just sitting
jaking
out.
It, right? Where are all those people?
He should have got a agent. He's wasting time. Yada 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 yada.
And even all the teams that passed who could have had him.
Well,
I mean, that's the other
gone.
part.
That's
I
gone
know,
because
I know.
he's been in the league,
But I'm just
6
saying,
years,
it
7
tells you
years
a lot,
now.
and that's why the whole story about collusion.
That's right, yeah.
Because anybody, if you're really trying to win, Ephraim, and that guy's available, what football? You're an owner, and your football people didn't go to you and say, "Dude, we got to get this guy." Are you
they wanted
kidding?
him to play receiver. Remember?
Right. Yeah, Bill Polian, who was in the Hall of Fame.
He wanted to play
that guy.
receiver.
And we want to hear from you with Lamar Jackson. Have you come aboard? If you were wrong about Lamar Jackson, this is your chance to call in and be cleansed. We will cleanse you of your, that's right, a baptism. Chris isn't here, but we'll do it for him, and we'll cleanse you because you were so wrong about this guy, and it's time for you to at least acknowledge it and admit it. This guy's the best player on the best team, and damn it, he's the MVP. It is the odd couple. And let's go, Ephraim. We got some calls. Who we got? Let's go.
Jerome, what's happening, man? What you got?
All I got to say about Lamar Jackson is don't listen to these people, man. They'll build you up 1 minute, and then they'll tear you down the next. Now that you're the mark team, because you're the team, all I'm saying, they got the inside track to the Super Bowl. You got the inside track to nothing, man.
Wait a minute, Jerome. Is he the MVP?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, more than likely. But you know what? That means nothing.
But look, I get it. And he can't play a playoff game in January 1st, okay? Like when people do that, I hate it. Cuz he can't win the Super Bowl today.
No.
It don't matter, dude. No. You win the MVP and then you go on to the next thing. And that's what happens. Come on, man, that ain't fair. He can't win the Super Bowl now. All he can do is play the best that he's played. That's all.
I worry about him getting hurt.
Why? The season is over. The season is over, though. Like, the season is over. I can guarantee you he probably won't play more than a series
or two.
Then they have a bye, and then you're in the playoffs. So at this point, you got to throw caution to the wind. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. You got 2 games, and you're in the Super Bowl. That's it. He made it. He made it through the season.
He did. 877-99 on Fox.
Will in Wisconsin. You on the Odd Couple with Rob and Ephraim. What you got?
What's going on, gentlemen? Merry New Year to y'all, man.
Happy New Year.
Merry New Year.
Boy, I got to tell you, man, Lamar is a Ferrari on a Buick lot. Just the way that he's able to impose himself, it's almost like watching a basketball player be able to. I mean, there's 11 guys, of course, there on the offense, and a whole 50-plus person roster. But Lamar is just such a special player, man. And I can understand what everybody's saying about him needing to win the big game. But right now, honestly, there's only one team that I take in one game, just one game in the playoff to win a game. And honestly, that's the Chiefs, man. With that playability, with the
I don't
know. Everything was great.
Not this year.
Everything was great, but you lost the there. Yeah.
They have. You know what? Yesterday's game, they didn't score a touchdown for an hour and a half.
Hard to watch.
For an hour and a half. I think it takes Andy Reid longer to order than for them to get a touchdown. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Let's get some of those nugs.
That's right. 877-99 on Fox.
Drew in New Jersey, you on the Odd Couple with Rob and Ephraim. What you got?
Hey, how's it going, guys? How you guys doing?
What's up, Drew?
Good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So I'm going to get right to it. So last week when I called, I said, hey, I need to see stats. So to me, stats do matter. If you look in any sport, we've never given the MVP to anybody that didn't have stats at least backing it up. Karl Malone, if you want to say most valuable, when Karl Malone was winning those MVPs, I don't think, if you ask any basketball expert, I think they were saying John Stockton was more valuable behind all.
What are you trying to say, Drew? You don't think that Lamar Jackson is the MVP?
I think now he does. I needed, like I said, I think I needed to see the stats to go along with it. For me, as just a sports traditionalist, I needed the stats. Now you look at it, he has 24 touchdowns. He's going to finish below 1,000 yards rushing, and he's going to have 4,000 yards passing. And he might end up with 25, 26 touchdowns. So if you look at it, now, okay, it makes sense to me. I can accept it.
Yeah, I just thought I thought that especially that game against the 49ers, that was the one that pushed it over to me. You know what I mean? Like I was like that was the game. If Brock Purdy had outplayed him in that situation, it probably wouldn't have gone his way. That was a big game there.
Well, normally when to that point, to having the stats that you have to be the quarterback or the MVP. When you look at this year, no one has 40 touchdowns passes. No one has 50 touchdown passes. That made it extremely easy to say, oh, they've thrown for 5,500 yards or 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. But in a year, this is why Christian McCaffrey's name was coming up, because you don't really have that outlier in terms of quarterbacks. Right. You look at Tua, he has 4,500 yards passing. Brock Purdy has 4,200 yards, only 28 touchdowns for Tua, passing touchdowns, 31 for Brock Purdy. So it's not one of those years where the quarterback stats will jump off the page.
Right, like when Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and those guys
what I'm talking about, right?
And Patrick Mahomes had 50, and those guys. When you have it like
easy.
that's easy. It's an easy.
But now, when you're just watching the eye test and you watching and what Lamar Jackson has meant to that Baltimore's team, they're the number 1 seed in a loaded AFC where everybody was clawing and fighting.
And when they've played the best, they've demolished them.
They've not only beaten them, they've beaten them down.
No doubt. All right. It is the Odd Couple. Rob Parker, Ephraim Salaam, in for Chris Broussard, coming to you live from the TireRack.com studios. Ephraim, here's the problem I got with college football. And everybody want to expand it.
You just got one problem?
But the biggest one is expanding, the college football playoffs. They're on 12 teams that are really viable. We just saw, what did we see with Florida State, right? But how many blowouts have we seen in these college football playoff games? Seriously. Is there really 12 teams that are good enough to compete for a national championship? And that's all I'm saying. You could play the games if you want to and make money off of them, but are they really viable to win a national championship? And the answer is no. Even Michigan, Jim Harbaugh's 1-6 in bowl games, and the last 2 years they've been annihilated. Like, all right, they got a chance now here with this team, but the last 2 years they were embarrassed.
So my personal opinion is, I don't think at any point, if you've lost 3 games in a season in college football, I don't think you should have the right to play for a college championship. So in the top 12, Oklahoma is 10-3. Penn State is 10-3. LSU 10-3. Like, I don't think any of these teams should have earned the right to play for a national championship, because now you're muddying the water, in my opinion, right? You got a bunch of 1-loss teams and maybe a handful of 2-loss teams like Ohio State. Like, Oregon only lost to Washington twice. Right? So now it's like, okay, I can understand that. I can see that. But a 10-3 Penn State team, what are we doing?
This is what I'm saying, and that's the kind of teams you're going to have.
It's just,
if you spread the net and you bring in 12 teams.
Too many.
Like people are all upset.
Everybody overcorrected.
Right, overcorrected. Everybody can't get in. I get it. There's always going to be somebody who feels like they should be in, and you know what I mean. They had a great season, but I'd rather err on the side of just the 4 best, you know what I mean, rather than 4 teams that don't belong at all. And that's what you'll wind up getting when you add the other 8 teams.
So basically it's the winner of the Power 5 conference gets an automatic bid, right? What the sole winner of the Power 5 conferences, that's 5 teams. And then if you add it, to me, at the maximum, I would say 6, but at the very maximum, I would say 8 teams. But 6 to me feels like you take the top 6
probably
teams,
be even better than the 8.
Because,
I know 12 is no good.
Because we got Michigan, Washington, Texas, Florida State, Alabama, Georgia. That would be our top 6 this year. To me, if they expanded it to 6 instead of 12. And even 8, if you threw 2 more in there, you get the Ohio State and Oregon. All of those 8 teams have shown throughout the year that they have a legitimate shot at possibly winning the national championship. But when you add 12, then you're gonna get Liberty, right? Who was 13-0, just played Oregon. And
got drilled.
It wasn't even – I mean, outside of that first drive that they had and went down and scored a touchdown and then missed the extra point, it was over after that. It was over. No substance to it. Nobody wants to watch that, let alone be a part of it.
You know what Patrick Henry said after watching that game? Give me liberty or give me death.
You on fire. You on fire today, right? You on fire. Oh, wow. That's what happens when you take a radio personality and he turn stand-up comedian. I got to sit here for 3 hours and endure.
You got to endure some of it. I'm working on my material.
I'm not mad at you.
This is my nightmare.
Well, at least I'm not cheating you. You know, I'm coming prepared. I'm working.
You working.
I'm working.
You working. I got you.
No doubt about it. And here's some other just notes when we talk about the college football. 9 of the 27 college football playoff history games, right, and 9 of the 27 games in the history of the college football playoffs have been decided by single digits. Only 9 of 27.
Wow.
And 13 of those games have been decided by more than 20 points. So that was my point about all these games are being blowouts. So you're now expanding it and adding more and more, and it doesn't make any sense. And more is not always good. I'm looking at the NFL playoffs right now in a picture. Too many bad teams have a chance to make the playoffs. like last night.
Yeah.
All right, we got to watch Minnesota. They couldn't even move the football. They had a chance, right? 7-8. Yeah. Green Bay 7-8. All these bad teams, and they're not dead. You know, like here we are the last week of the season because there's 1 or 2 teams too many in the play. These teams are not playoff teams.
What I will say to that, this year is an outlier in terms of the NFL and these records. Do you realize for the majority of the year, 11 or 12 or more backup quarterbacks started for these teams?
No, I get it.
Like
I know.
That's what we're watching.
Oh no, but it is bad. There's no doubt. This has been like one of the worst years.
Well, when you lose, the top 5 teams in the league all have their starting quarterbacks.
Right, but I'm just saying. But also, there's a lot of teams that just aren't that good, and you know what I mean. And I just think you don't want to water it down to where you're letting people in. Did they get in?
Yep, Alabama scores.
See, and that's what we were talking about. You let them stick around. You've dominated them the entire game.
Dominated.
5 sacks in the first half, right? All of that. And then before you know it, now you're down, and then you got that extra point missed, right? So now that you need a touchdown if they make this.
You need a touchdown. You're going to have to chase that 2-point conversion. I mean, that point you blew early in the first quarter. So
right.
It's just a situation where, you know, you can't let a Nick Saban type team just hang around and be within striking distance. We saw what Auburn did, 4 weeks ago in the Iron Bowl against Alabama. Alabama should even be here. It was a 4th and 18, and Alabama with no time left on the clock. Alabama scores.
What was it, 4th and 31?
It was out of control.
Ridiculous.
Out of control.